to KELP Las Cruces. Feed your mind, feed your soul with your local Christian radio station, 89.3 FM. Wide at KELPradio.com.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world? From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host.
Good afternoon, beautiful citizens of the borderland. This is 915 Talk, and I am your host, Andy Frecker. We are broadcasting live from the heart of the world's largest borderplex. We're at the KELP studio here in El Paso on this beautiful March 24th, year of our Lord 2025. And today we have Mac Daddy Del Norte on the board. Mac Daddy Del Norte, how you doing? Yeah, Mac Daddy Del Norte is new on the board. Oh, he's on now.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. Just running around here, you know, being multi-useful.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And you're back there. Keith has you backed up. I like
Keith
that.
has my back. Yes, sir.
So we continue our 915 Talk conversations, Mac Daddy Del Norte. You've been learning a lot.
I have, actually.
I've been giving you an education.
Definitely.
Even though you have more formal education than I do, so we've been learning a lot about El Paso, the borderland, and one of the things I like talking about, Mac Daddy Del Norte, is there's this verse in the Bible.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Yes.
Do not despise the days of small beginnings.
There you
go.
go.
Today we're going to talk about something that does not yet exist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was talking to my wife about this. I was like, this is kind of a risk on our part. we're talking about something that does not yet exist.
Wow.
But we're going to speak of it as if it does exist.
As it does. Okay.
You know what that is?
No, I don't. So
that's faith, Mac Daddy Del Norte.
There we go.
Yeah.
It is called faith.
Yeah, that's right. It is faith. So today we're going to be talking about why on earth would any sensible individuals ever start a school?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably in the same conversation like, why would any sensible individual take on managing a Christian AM radio station?
Right.
It's just the same conversation.
Right.
But I've spent most of my adult life, pretty much my whole adult life, starting new ministries.
Okay.
And I think the beginning part is the part you always tell the stories about later.
That's right.
But it's not the part that's particularly the most enjoyable.
Right.
So we're going to be talking with two pastors from Calvary Chapel El Paso. They're over on Zaragoza. And I went over there just this weekend. I was there on Saturday and Sunday. Quite a I would say a vibrant congregation there. I was able to share about KELP, 915 Talk, 915 Pray. I was able to hear everyone's grievances from the congregation about what's going on at KELP. I'm just joking. There was a lot. But no, it was really fun to get over there and get to know the church a little bit. And today in studio, I have two pastors from Calvary Chapel El Paso over on Zaragoza. And I think it's important to say before I introduce them that they are not at all related to each other, except for we are all related in the Lord. So no blood connection here, but two pastors from El Paso, Calvary Chapel El Paso. So without further ado, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome to Pastor Louis Martinez and Pastor Sean Martinez. Sean and Louis, welcome to 915 Talk.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I think I'll just call you Sean and Louis, not Pastor Martinez, Mr. Martinez. Because,
Sean and Louis,
yeah, that doesn't work.
So we're going to talk about why Calvary Chapel is starting a school. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the church. And before we do that, Sean, yesterday you were preaching, and you were talking about the abuses of grace.
Amen.
No, that's not what you were talking about. You were talking about how we really need to show grace to each other in the church. But you started talking about something a little bit offhand, and I thought it would be interesting just to mention this to our audience because we recently did a whole week of prayer on 915 Pray on church hurt. Because one thing that I think almost everyone has in common in El Paso, everyone has in common who's listening to this conversation right now, whether they go to church or not, is that at one point in their life they were hurt by a church. The only difference between those people is that some people stayed after the hurt and some people left the church.
Yeah.
And so what was it you and I don't want to minimize there are some egregious examples of church hurt. But you brought up a point that I think does cover a high percentage of church hurt. and what was that?
Well, I think, first of all, like you said, it's absolutely not to say that there aren't things that go on. I think there are ways that people have been hurt and some pretty egregious ones. Mm-hmm. The important part when we're talking about grace, though, is understanding that one, there's a need for repentance and restoration and building that back up. But the crazy thing is that a lot of the things that we call church hurt, they're things that happen when you go to the store, when you go to the auto mechanic, when the plumber comes and does whatever he's going to do because you blew a pipe in your house. Like, we talk about all those things and we keep going back. You know, I can't believe they did this at the DMV, but you don't give up driving because you got DMV hurt. You just go back and you get in line, you take another ticket, and you keep going.
Right.
But we talk about church hurt, and some of those things happen, and we're like done with not only the church, but we're done with God. Like, well, if that's the way Christians are, that must be the way God is, and so why do I want to be a part of that?
Right.
And so we do a disservice to the body, I think, a lot of times, inside and outside. Like you said, I think there's a lot of people that have church hurt that don't even come to a church, never been to a church.
Right.
But Christians have done a poor job of showing grace. So.
Right. Yeah. There's been, you talked about church hurt. You talked about work hurt.
Yeah. Spousal hurt.
Yeah. Spousal hurt. That's not one I'm familiar with, but
good one.
I couldn't say that.
You better get that one in
I
there.
couldn't do that with a straight face. So no. Moving right along, but the point is, if you're hurt at work, 99 times out of 100, you're still going back the next day. Yeah. And it was interesting to me. I was talking to a good friend, and he's not a believer, and we were just talking about the church, and I brought up the idea that there's hypocrisy in the church. I thought I would.
Head him off at the pass.
Yeah, it's exactly. And so he said, you know what? My dad taught me this, because his dad is a believer. He said, my dad taught me that there's no reason for Satan to go to the bar. There's no reason for Satan to go to the alley where people are shooting up. His work there is done. So where would he focus all his energy? He would focus it on the church.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a really cool rebuke, really, for me, just to be reminded that. And I said, well, of course, you can't judge God by his very flawed people, But anyway, I thought that was a really good point you made yesterday, and it is important for us to be reminded of that. Yes, of course, we're hurt at church. There are people there. So, and of course, we're hurt at the DMV. There are people there, or at work, or any time we have interaction with someone else.
And sometimes we are the hurt.
Yeah.
But we don't think
I don't know anything about that, Sean.
Sometimes it's self-inflicted.
Yeah. I like that. So, Sean, you were born in a Calvary Chapel, from what I understand.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
And you but Louis, you were not. Is that right? You were
That's-
not born inside of Calvary Chapel.
That's correct.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your origin story. You spent how many years in law enforcement?
35 years.
35 years. Was that here in El
Yes.
Paso?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I did 23 with the city and another 12 with the University of Texas
Okay.
at El Paso.
Okay.
So
What is one thing you notice different now? Let me ask you this. How many years have you been out of law enforcement?
it's been about 6 years, 7 years, somewhere around
Okay.
there.
So you
Yes.
started well over 40 years ago.
Yes.
What is different now as far as security in El Paso, safety, as compared to 40 years ago?
What's different is it's spiritual. The different things that occur, the crimes that occur, did occur back then. I mean, there's no change. You know, you still have your robberies, your sexual assaults, your beer runs. Those existed back then. But I think now there's a heavy spiritual presence that's encompassed our city. And you could see that in the frequency of the crimes that are occurring and the continuation of it. And you see that filtering into our justice system.
Okay. Wow.
Yes.
That's a very big statement. And that's where I feel like inclined to say that opinions expressed during this broadcast
Yeah, you got it covered.
do not represent those of KELP, Cornerstone Broadcasting, Desert Voice Media. But no, I'm sort of joking. But why would you say that?
I would say that because back then you did a crime, you knew you did it, and you paid the price for it if you get arrested or whatever. Now there's this idea that it's no longer wrong. We have taken and called something evil good and good evil.
Yeah.
And that has permeated our society where they don't even think they're doing things wrong when they take a Molotov cocktail and they throw it at a Tesla, for example. That's one of the
Right.
more recent examples.
Yeah. Well, I heard that Elon Musk put a Tesla sign on an IRS building so that his enemies would no,
Yes.
that is a joke. That didn't happen.
But
yeah.
now somebody's going to hear that. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a little bit too much time on Twitter today. Anyway, but yeah, because El Paso was recently once again named by some rating agency as United States' safest city. And it's been interesting for me because I'm kind of new to the city, relatively new, been here now almost 3 years. It does feel very safe. But being here at the radio station, I've been able to meet all kinds of people. And we even had ex-gang members in here.
Yes.
And just coming to understand that there's a whole underworld that you don't see when you're just living a normal life, relatively normal, like my family lives. We don't see any of these things, but there's a lot going on in El Paso. So I think what you bring up is important, that there is a spiritual component, and we need to be mindful of this, praying for this, not just feeling content in the idea that we can walk safely around El Paso at any time of day, which I think is true. But there's a lot more going on.
And that's a good credit that you mentioned that the El Paso Police Department, all the local law enforcement agencies, state and federal here in El Paso, work well together to keep this city safe.
Yeah.
They do a really good job with the staffing that they have.
Right. Okay. So, Louis, you spent all those years in law enforcement. Then you spent some years teaching Malachi, who's now arrived at the station, and he's running our video. That does remind me that you don't have to listen to the radio unless you're driving. Then you should only listen. But if you're at home right now, I would remind you that you can actually tell Alexa, you can tell your smart speaker to turn on KELP radio, or you can put on KELP radio on YouTube, and we're doing a live stream on on YouTube and on Facebook. And Malachi, the Italian prophet, my son, is running the live video feed. So you taught him. What were you teaching him?
I taught him physics.
Physics. And what was he a good student?
Oh, he was an excellent student.
An excellent student.
Yes, he was.
So what caused you to shift from law enforcement to teaching?
I used to teach law enforcement. I was a police instructor.
Oh, so you just brought those two things together.
Yes, it was all adult oriented though. I mean, teaching defensive tactics, teaching the updates to the legislature for that new year, all the updated laws. So yes, there was always a teaching component.
Okay.
And I wanted to continue that, and I always felt that when I worked at UTEP, and you got to see the people, the students there, and I cared for them, and I wanted to do more for them. So when I left law enforcement, I knew I had to serve, but in what capacity? Well, what better capacity than to be a minister and to teach others the gospel, and also to teach the courses that we do with a biblical worldview.
Right. Yeah, we're definitely going to dive into that, what it means to teach with a biblical worldview. Sean, you've spent your whole life at Calvary Chapel El Paso, or what is that origin story?
So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, but I think a short story would be when I was 4, the senior pastor that founded Calvary Chapel of El Paso. So Calvary Chapels are we're not a denomination, even though...
Yes, you are, Sean.
I know, but officially, according to the IRS, we're not we're non-denominational, but we're pretty close.
Yeah.
But it's this big, now literally a worldwide movement of churches, and so a fellowship of churches. And so when Calvary Chapel of El Paso started, it actually started as what you would call either a second or a third generation. So Chuck Smith started out in Costa Mesa, and then out of that, there was a man named Raul Reese that got saved. He started a church out in West Covina, and he's still pastoring out in California. Out of that church came Calvary Chapel Las Cruces, which was Bob Ortega. And then out of that church came Calvary Chapel of El Paso.
And that's how you were born.
And that's how I was born. So our senior pastor, who was the founding pastor of Calvary Chapel El Paso, he and my dad met at UTEP. They were both in the UTEP marching band, and they became great friends and were best friends, I would say, until my dad passed away. And so they both got saved right around the same time during the Jesus movement. We're at a couple of different churches, and then Charlie ended up getting called to found Calvary Chapel of El Paso. And so my dad kind of bounced around, and when I was 4 and my brother was 2, they decided, you know what, we're going to go ahead and support this church. And so there were like 10 to 12 people meeting in a garage on Sunday evening, and the pastor from Cruces would drive down and do a Sunday evening Bible study, and so that's how Calvary Chapel El Paso started.
Right. So what part of town was that church in at that time?
Oh, man.
What was it, the east side where it is now?
No, it was probably a little bit more central. I don't know exactly where it was, but it was the
true El Paso.
Right, there you go. Honestly, where we're at now, at that time, was just desert.
Right.
There was nothing out there.
Yeah, so you were somewhere more central because El Paso is... how many years ago was this?
Oh, this was back in 1984.
1984, so we're talking just... right around the time KELP became a Christian station.
Yeah.
Right around that same time was when Calvary Chapel in El Paso was planted. You were meeting in a garage somewhere more central because there was no East El Paso.
There was no East El Paso that it is now, yeah.
Yeah, and then at what point did you move over to Zaragoza?
That, I think, was in 1990, I want to say 98. We moved over there, and we bought a building from a church called Temple Zion Baptist, and Pastor Lang had been pastoring there for many years, and they had actually built the building themselves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was wild. There were some things that were amazing about that building, and there were some things that they were starting to go.
Right.
But we rented for a while there, and then we ended up buying that, and then after we bought the property and the building, a few years later, we started a building project, and in 2004, we were able to demolish the old building, and we're in our current facility now.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned that the people from the church build it themselves. And just the look on your face reminded me of when I was a missionary for many years, and we'd have teams come to do practical construction work, and the locals asked me to stop inviting those teams. So
there were definitely some things.
Yeah, but I love the passion of those people, and we got a lot of good things done. But and to be fair, I was also asked to never do any construction work. I put my heart into it, but I just could never get those drywall.
Well, you're doing better than most. It took me a while before I put my heart into any of those projects.
Yep, that's right. So we're about to go into a break. We're with Pastor Sean Martinez, Pastor Louis Martinez from Calvary Chapel here in El Paso. They're over on Zaragoza on the east side. We're going to be talking a bit about their new school, Calvary Chapel Christian Academy. And I love the fact that we're talking about it here in these initial stages. Look forward to kind of looking back some years in the future about what the Lord will be doing. As we go into break, I just want to give a shout out, first of all, to our KELP Impact Partner, Caring Companions. If you have an elderly relative who needs some assistance, or if you just need to get out of the house from time to time, Caring Companions El Paso has been highly recommended by friends of mine who use them. You don't always have to, move that relative into a facility. You can sometimes get help at home, which is, of course, the place where we all want to be. So shout out to them. Also, just a reminder that 915 Talk is listener supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. To listen to this conversation or any previous conversations, go to the new website, desertvoice.media. That's right. That's the website, desertvoice.media. We're going to go into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
Hey, this is Pastor Ricky Alcantad from Better News Radio right here in El Paso, Texas. And I want to extend a special invitation to you to join us on Easter Sunday. Our church, Cross of Grace, is going to be gathering in a special off-site service at McElligan Canyon. We hope to fill up that amphitheater with people singing about and hearing about the good news of Jesus Christ. You can find more information on our special Easter service at crossofgrace.net.
Testify.
I used to be a hardcore Catholic. I actually wasn't giving all praise and honor to God or Jesus Christ. I was worshiping the Virgin Mary, and little by little I started seeing things that were just not right. And it was by listening to your radio station. I would like to tell you how I came upon this station. I used to work for a concrete company, and we were working on 24-hour shifts, and my truck was assigned to somebody at night. So when I came in the morning, they changed all my stations. And so I had my stations already programmed. So I was changing it, and I came upon KLP. And so I left it there because they called me into dispatch to go get my ticket. And when I came back, I just kept listening to it. And if I had never heard this radio station, who knows, I probably would have still been lost, still living in this darkness.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb
And by the word of their testimony.
KELPradio.com. We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
We are back, and you are listening to 915 Talk. I am your host, Andy Frecka. Today we're with two pastors from Calvary Chapel El Paso, Pastor Sean Martinez and Pastor Louis Martinez. No relation between the two, but we're having a fun conversation just about their journeys and also about the journey of Calvary Chapel El Paso. We're going to jump into talking about the school that they're starting. But I just want to mention during the break, you heard 915 testify, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And that testify with Tommy, that's the voice you heard. What is he? Your facilities manager?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has such a great story where he came to the Lord through KELP. He was driving a cement truck. Do you know this story?
Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody changed the presets in a cement truck. and he got onto KELP, and I guess that's how he came to the Lord. But I love that story. Also, of course, KELP has quite a tradition and history with Calvary Chapel. Yeah. And we love continuing. You mentioned Raul Reese. He's on at 6:30 every day. And of course Pancho Juarez and Terry Gray. So it's very cool to continue that tradition. So I'm going to ask Sean this first. Why on earth have you decided to start a school?
That's a great question, because like you did in the lead-in, why on earth? Who would think that this would be a good idea? And 20 years ago, we did it, and I was one of those voices that was like, who on earth? Why would we do this? Because financially, it doesn't always make sense. And like my background, I've always been, I was actually originally going to school, and I graduated with a degree in business management, and I was going to be an accountant. I like numbers, and so numbers are my thing.
Right.
And schools, Christian schools generally, they're tough, especially the first few years. And so we had a school for a few years when we first built the building back in 2004, and that was really part of the design for the building, is we wanted to have a school. It's really been in the heart of the staff since way back, since even before that. Our senior pastor, Charlie, he was a Christian educator for many, many years before being an educator in the public schools. He was a band director after that. And so it had always been in their hearts to do. So we opened the building, we opened the school, and, we know that it had purpose. We saw a lot of fruit come out of it, but financially it just was not the time. And then we started hitting the financial struggles of that 07, 08 time frame, and things got crazy, and we ended up having to close the school down. And but it was always in our hearts to be able to do that again at some point. And then a couple of years ago, it was something that in a staff meeting it came up, and we were talking about it again. And then, unbeknownst to us, our new head of school, Jessica Doherty, it had been really in her heart to do it, and so she started mentioning it to some people. And then Pastor Louis came on, and he had interned, which is a whole other wild thing. He's got more education than I do, and he was my intern. So I don't even know how that worked. But he came on, and one of the things that he talked about was really wanting to be a part of opening a school. And we had never mentioned that to either of them. And so we went back in a staff meeting. We started praying about it again, and it just felt like this is the time. And, through God's grace, we were able to finally pay off our building, and so the property and the building are now ours, free and clear. And so we've been able to set aside some funds that are just going to enable us to get through, even if it's rough those first few years, to be able to sustain it. And we just really feel like this is a time. So.
Because despite popular opinion, opening a private Christian school is not particularly a lucrative
It's
endeavor.
not a moneymaker in general. Like I'm sure that there are some that do it, and they do it in a way that works for them. But our heart is not to make money out of this. Our heart is really to be able to minister to the community and to minister to the body by giving them a quality Christian education, with a focus and emphasis on Christ.
So I definitely want to dive now into a quality Christian education. Also, Louis, you were talking about education with a biblical worldview, what that means. But before we do that, we need to have a different conversation. Mac Daddy Del Norte is queuing it up. Charlie 1, can you hear me? Charlie 1, how you doing?
Doing good. Traffic very busy right now. Police are very busy right now with what's going on. Andy, first of all, let's go to Northeast, Woodrow Bean, and Goliad. This crash just happened. PD going out there, not PD controlled. Let's go downtown for a second. Kansas and Paisano, very busy intersection. Have a crash here. Kansas and Paisano, Far East Side, Edgemere and Nolan Richardson. We have a crash. That one just happened again. PD going to that location, so extra caution in that area. Then these a lot of construction going on. I'm talking about I-10 West at Lee Trevino. They had the right lane closed. They just opened it up right now. However, there's still some backed up and congestion going on here, I-10 West at Lee Trevino, because that right lane was closed. Also, I-10 West and Miss on the west side, that right lane is still closed. They're doing alternate lane closures here, construction, I-10 West at Mesa, but that's backing up traffic, single file to the Sunland Park area, so a lot of congestion going on in that area. Closure also going on Gateway East at America's right lane taken away. And there's more construction going on. I could go on another half hour, but I don't think we have that kind of time. There's a lot of construction going on, Andy. So, but those were the major points right there.
Well, thank you for the report, Charlie One, and I have some big news for you. Yesterday, I tried menudo for the very first time.
Oh, okay.
And I'm here. We're talking about Calvary Chapel Christian Academy. I was there with their new head of school and her husband, my wife. The four of us went out, and they fed me menudo for the very first time. It was really good. So tell me about menudo every day, Charlie One.
Yeah, that is, menudo is something very delicious. Mi Perito Cafe, 3120 Traywood, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sunday through Wednesday. You can catch us today, tomorrow. We have the breakfast and lunch dinners specials. We have the menudo every day, Mexican plate, seafood, vegetarian options. Try that delicious menudo. You're going to love it. And Mi Perito Cafe, 3120 Traywood. Andy, back to you.
You're not going to hold on, Charlie Wood. You're not going to believe this. The place I had the menudo was that cafe.
At Mi Perito Cafe?
Yeah, it was really good.
Great.
Yeah,
very good. Very good.
I've finally lived the dream of every KELP listener. And so I appreciate you giving them a shout out, and I made it out there yesterday. And just a reminder also to our listeners that if you have a chip or crack on your windshield, check out the fine folks at AlamoGlassPros.com. Really good people, and they also get that tinting on your windshield so you don't squint as we get into the summer. Thank you, Charlie One. We'll talk later.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, so we're back again with Pastor Sean Martinez, Pastor Louis Martinez of Calvary Chapel El Paso over there in Zaragoza. The church was built you moved there when it was just desert. There wasn't a whole lot going, but now El Paso has grown way past the church. I love the fact that there are churches kind of being built farther and farther east as the city grows, because that's becoming a bigger and bigger need. So, Louis, tell me about this whole idea of worldview in education. Why do you think it matters? Why, a lot of people, why not send my kid to a public school?
That's a very good question. And my answer to that would be truth. You have a lot of families with children going to, whether it's public school or some other charter school or something different. But what my heart says to these families is, you want your children to grow up knowing what truth is. And that's where you integrate a biblical worldview in mathematics, and when you're talking about earthquakes, when you're talking about how the world began, Noah's flood, what is the truth in all that? And I want these children to grow up being able to discern truth from a lie. And that's exactly what we learn when we read our Bibles. And you learn about the Word of God. You learn what truth is. Right. And as a result of that, you learn what is not true. And I want the children to be able to find that out for themselves.
Right. Okay. So what grades will Calvary Chapel Christian Academy be?
We're going to start K-5 through 5th grade.
K-5 through 5th grade.
Yes, and we're going to have art classes. We're going to have Spanish classes for them, and we're going to have some sports for them, some volleyball, basketball, some flag football.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. So K-5, I believe that the only stupid question is the one that is left unasked. So Daddy Del Norte is laughing at me. He has to do this every day. Listen to me ask dumb questions. But K-5 is kindergarten, 5 years old?
Yes, it's right before they hit 1st grade.
Okay.
The year before they hit 1st grade.
Yeah, okay. So 5 years old, so through 5th grade.
Yes.
And what are you looking at for class size?
We're hoping to have at least 10 children per class.
Okay.
1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, all the way up.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And when you look at the whole scene, which I'm sure you have as a church, as far as Christian private schools in El Paso, where do you think you fit in?
I think that where we fit in is that ability to have one-on-one education, teaching them one-on-one, one teacher for 10 children. Okay. I remember going to UTEP and sitting in a chemistry class with 150 students. And I'm telling you, there was no one-on-one interaction with the professor.
Yeah.
And so that does create trauma because you're learning on your own basically at that point. So I don't want that to happen to the children. I want them to have attention, and so they can ask their questions. And they can explore their questions with the guidance of a teacher.
I love it. You know, I kind of asked that question. It's a little bit of a difficult question because there have been Christian private schools that have shut down in recent years, and my strong belief is we need more Christian schools around El Paso. I don't personally believe every child should go to private school. I don't believe every child should be homeschooled. I certainly don't believe every child should go to public school, but that option should be there in every part of the city. And it is a struggle. I mean, without naming schools, you know, we've seen them shut down in recent years, and there's been quite the headwinds. I mean, hats off to the church, you know, for taking this on. And particularly on the east side, I don't know of any other Christian private schools. I guess there's Sunshine in that part of town. And that's about it. But we need more. Where do you see yourself or as a school 5 years from now?
I hope after our elementary school gets going that we can proceed to a middle school and then eventually a high school.
Okay,
that's our vision, and but we're gonna play it in the Lord's hands, over His timing.
Well, starting off right away with extracurricular is pretty ambitious. Probably. You mentioned volleyball. You mentioned flag football. Did you say art as well?
Art and Spanish.
Art and Spanish. Yeah, I don't think that every private school even really has a real in-person second language. So I Spanish seems to be an obvious one. What do you do with if the child already speaks Spanish?
Then I guess he would be
Give
taking
him good
art.
grades.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's not the most important question, but I think that I love that you're teaching Spanish, just because everyone should speak Spanish well, unlike me.
Or me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I grew up here my whole life, and we used to joke that my brother and I are like coconuts. Brown on the outside and white on the inside. We don't speak Spanish at all. Like
that's on you, Sean.
It is on me. Although, as a testament to the beauty of Spanish in public school, I aced high school Spanish.
But you don't speak it.
But I don't speak it.
Yeah.
But I got my alphabet and my numbers.
Yeah.
So.
Well, whatever you did was better than what I did, because I took Spanish in small town Ohio under the tutelage of Senora Beavers. And the one phrase I learned, because she said, if you ask me in Spanish, you can go. And so literally every day I walked up to her and said, tengo que ir al baño. And I got to leave for a while. So that's the phrase I learned, and I regret not paying closer attention. But I mean, we live here in El Paso. You got to have that Spanish class. Love it. So we're about to go into another break. Again, we're with Pastor Sean Martinez, Pastor Louis Martinez of Calvary Chapel El Paso over on Zaragoza. I had the privilege of just being with them this weekend, sharing just a little bit about KELP during their services. And I'll just say this, you know, if you're particularly if you live on the east side of El Paso and you're looking for a church home, you know, check out Calvary Chapel over on Zaragoza. And we're talking with them today about the opening of Calvary Chapel Christian Academy. We're going to go into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
Hey, KLP listeners, this is Pastor Terry Gray of Calvary Chapel Sun City on El Paso's west side. I want to invite you to join me at a new time at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday right here on KELP. If you're driving home at 5 p.m. or doing work around the house or getting your evening started, I invite you to join me as we go through the Bible chapter by chapter, verse by verse. There is nothing more valuable than the Word of God, so let's invest our time in learning more about it together each day. That's our Bible study program, Summons, each weekday at 5 p.m. right here on KELP. Are you looking for a Bible teaching church on the west side of El Paso? This is Terry Gray, pastor of Calvary Chapel Sun City and speaker on the Summons broadcast heard each weekday at 5 p.m. here on this station. Calvary Chapel Sun City is located at 960 West Borderland Road on the west side of El Paso. We hold services on Wednesday evenings at 7 and on Sunday mornings at 9 and 11. You can find out more information about us on the web at www.ccsuncity.org. The Lord bless you, my friends.
We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
We are back, and you're listening to 915 Talk. I'm your host, Andy Frecka. We're with Pastor Sean Martinez, Pastor Louis Martinez of Calvary Chapel El Paso on Zaragoza on El Paso's west side. Louis and Sean are not related. I feel like I have to say that every time. I'm just kind of chuckling because I'm not sure if Malachi is paying careful attention. Oh, yes, he is. He is. All right. So we have we have our video feed going. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube Live. And we have Mac Daddy Del Norte on the mic. We're talking about Calvary Chapel Christian Academy. It's opening up this year. But before we talk about that, during the break, you guys were waxing nostalgic about KELP. Yeah. So, Louis, you were listening in the patrol car? Is that what you said?
Oh, yes. When I first started, it was 1986 when I was in patrol. And you had to listen to something. You can't just drive around all day long in your patrol car.
Sure.
And I found KELP. I started listening to it. I was hooked on it. And that's where I really learned about the Bible.
Right.
That's where I learned about Calvary Chapel. And that helped me mature and transform myself into a better Christian and to seek out a Bible-believing church.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And since you were born in Calvary Chapel,
right.
Sean, during a service, so it was Wednesday night, so not too many people there.
Low attendance.
But you also grew up listening to KELP, is that right?
I did. Yeah. And we knew Arnie pretty well. Me, not quite as much as my dad and Charlie, but they knew Arnie very well and worked together. We had a men's conference, a citywide men's conference for a few years.
Right.
And KELP was really, really involved in that. So.
Yeah, and Arnie and Pam McClatchy, what a legacy, bringing this station through 40 years. And Arnie, of course, was instrumental in getting Pastor Chuck Smith on the radio. And wow, quite a story, and that happening right here in El Paso. I think a lot of people don't realize how big or profound that story is. But it's been fun for me because I'm the new guy to hear about all of this legacy. So, Louis, tell me about accreditation, because Calvary Chapel Christian Academy is accredited. Not all private Christian schools are accredited. I'm sure they have their reasons why they're not. Why did you choose to go the route of being accredited?
Well, we are in the process of applying for accreditation through the ACSI, the Association of Christian Schools International. And the purpose behind accreditation is just to make sure that we have structure, legitimate structure.
Right.
A lot of parents want to know what makes you special. Why would you want to teach? Where if we're certified, that gives us the structure, that gives us the foundation we need to make sure we stay on track. And I know it's kind of a weird, but I'm coming from the police department. So if you had a heart attack and I had to give you CPR, wouldn't you want to know if I was certified in CPR?
In that moment, I don't think he'd care. But
right?
Yeah. I was just remembering, this is totally off subject, but I happened to get into a little bit of a rabbit hole yesterday watching the old episodes of The Office, and they were trying to do the Recessa Annie, and they were not doing well. But I love the comparison there. You want someone who's certified, someone who is also under authority to be there, right?
Yes, you have to have a college degree. Mm-hmm. You have to take courses to make sure that you know how to integrate the Bible into the courses.
Right.
And it's just a good step for everybody.
Right. And as far as I understand with the Association of Christian Schools International, the Bible needs to be integrated into everything you do.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one side. Now, on the other side, I actually know some stuff. I know something about this because we recently had a conversation about school choice, which is this new legislation happening in Austin with the chair of the Texas Private School Association. And in order to get that funding, you have to be accredited, and the ACSI is one of those on the list that works for that. And so it is, I mean, I feel like I'm about to say something that could be a little bit come across wrong, but I love the fact that it's recognized both by the church and by people outside. You know, we should be held to a standard of excellence that is seen by everyone around us.
Absolutely.
And so I love the fact that you went that direction. It's not an easy process to the accreditation, but you're going that route. So you have Spanish, you have flag football, you have accreditation. What else do you need, Louis, for success?
Students.
Good answer.
Yes, we're currently enrolling.
Okay.
So, and when you open up a new school, the biggest thing you have to do is get the word out.
Right.
So that's very important. We want everyone to know, especially on the east side. It's grown so much. There has to be families out there that are looking for an alternative to public school, and would like to consider Calvary Chapel.
100%. And I love the fact that you just bring up East Side, because it's like on the far west there's Keystone, and El Paso is so big right now. You know, just driving all the way across town doesn't make it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my mind. And just to know that there is this school right down the street is important, and a school that is concerned about excellence in education. So I love that. So you're enrolling. What do I have to do to enroll? I'm ready to sign up because I need to work on my Spanish.
So what I would like you to tell everybody is that you can go to our website.
Everybody, you can go to their website,
CalvaryLionsEP.org.
Okay, CalvaryLionsEP.org, and we will have that also in the show notes. But also you can just Google Calvary Chapel Christian Academy El Paso, because I think there's another one in Florida or something.
Right.
Yes.
But Calvary Chapel Christian Academy here in El Paso, over on Zaragoza. So do I have to enroll right away, or can I just come by and make sure that you
can
you
call
built
us,
the building
make
correctly?
an appointment. We'll
Okay.
give you a tour of our facilities.
Uh-huh.
We'll answer any questions you have.
Okay.
And then you can consider, whatever it is that is in your interest.
What phone number can people call?
I don't have the
It's
number.
915-855-4565.
Yeah, that's great.
He did his research.
I don't know how many times that's happened. I had someone on recently. They don't know their own business's phone number, but it is 915-855-4565. But you can find Calvary Lions
EP.org.
on the internet. But I love it. K-5 through 5th grade, and you're looking for about 10 students per class. There definitely are 60 students on the east side of El Paso.
Oh, definitely.
That are looking for a home. So I love that we're able to be a part of getting the word out. Anything else you want everyone to know about Calvary Chapel Christian Academy?
We will start August 4th. That will be the first day of school.
Uh-huh.
But we're already starting now. We have Vacation Bible School at Calvary Chapel, June 23rd through the 27th.
Uh-huh.
Right after that.
What is the theme this year? Do you know?
Do you know that theme?
Is it
Wild
Pirates?
Wild West?
Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I love hearing every year just whatever the
With
theme is.
different
Anyway,
theme.
yeah. Wild Wild West. Okay.
And then July 7th through the 11th, we're going to have a reading camp for those
reading
elementary
camp.
school students.
Okay.
Just to start reinforcing
Okay.
their reading skills. Then July 14th through the 18th, we're going to have a math camp.
A math camp. I might send Malachi to the math camp.
Oh, he loves that
He's
stuff.
doing good with his reading.
Yes,
but
yes.
He could brush up on his math. But no, that's cool. I mean, just the idea that it's not just during the school year, but you have 3 weeks during the summer that you can just drop off your kids and not worry about them.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Well, very good. Again, Calvary Chapel Christian Academy, Calvary Lions, EP.org. Why the Lions?
We voted on it. We actually looked at different.
I'm not going to tell you all the other ones.
Was the other one Cougars?
Yeah, we're probably
No, actually, that one
Calvary
didn't come up.
Cougars? I mean,
that probably would have made the top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to tell you the least favorites, but we went through a few, and I mean, it's just you're trying to find something biblical and Christian, but also
Right.
looking to the future. You know, when you're trying to play high school football, and here come the Calvary Doves, it just doesn't quite ring the same way.
Right.
So.
Well, the denomination I grew up in had a college outside of New York City, and it was the Nyack Fighting Parsons. So, I mean, just something that...
At least they were fighting.
Yeah.
The fighting Parsons.
So, anyway, you're the Calvary Lions. Love it. Now, both of you are native to El Paso. This is your hometown?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good. So, Mac Daddy Del Norte.
Yes, sir.
And we have a few minutes left.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and we have 2 native El Pasoans.
Yes.
So, without further ado, Mac Daddy Del Norte, cue up the lightning round.
Oh, boy. I don't think you're ready for this one.
Okay.
So let's go with Louis. I feel like he's less ready.
Okay.
So Louis, I'm going to ask you some questions, and we are faith-based radio, so we do believe in right and wrong answers, just like you believe at Calvary Chapel Christian Academy. But also because we're faith-based radio, if you give a wrong answer, we do our best not to be judgmental, because as we learned from Pastor Sean yesterday, grace upon grace.
Probably get them all wrong.
Yeah. So first question. And this is a culinary question. It's something you're asked when you go out. Red or green?
Green.
That is correct. All right. So, Louis, what is your favorite place to answer that question?
My wife's cooking. She makes these green enchiladas.
Wow.
I have to shout out to my
can't
wife,
go wrong
Sharon,
there.
for helping me
Okay.
in my ministries
Yeah.
and for all she does to support me.
There
So,
you go, man.
That is the most biblical answer. So, Mac Daddy, let's hit it up. All right, Sean. Let's say you have a guest coming to El Paso. They've never been here before, and you're going to take them. You want to impress them, so you don't put them up at the Motel 6 like you normally would. You have them staying at your home. That's going to be super impressive. And where's a place that you take them that's not a restaurant?
Wow, that's not a restaurant, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh. Your house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. There we go. All right, Louis. Next question: Chico's Tacos, yes or no?
absolutely, yes.
That is correct.
Man, how come you get all the easy ones?
So, Sean, you've born and raised here in the borderland. At the beginning of 915 Talk, one of the things we say is, the world is looking at El Paso. What will we say to the world? What is one thing that the rest of the world does not understand about this city?
Oh, wow. I would say culturally, just that this is probably one of the most loving places that I think you could visit, especially along the border.
Love it. Yeah.
Wow, I even got the right answer.
So, Louis, you've spent your whole life here. You spent 35 years in law enforcement. Now you've been in the pastoral ministry. You've been teaching. What is your dream for the Calvary Lions?
My dream is that we get the church, the school that God wanted us to have, and that we do everything for His glory.
What does that school look like?
Massive.
Love it.
Lots of children.
Right. Okay. Well, I love it, and I just have seen your heart for the children, and I've seen the church's heart to really get behind a project that is, as we kind of joked around about in the beginning, not particularly lucrative, and really it's a service to the city. It's a service to the city. So. Love that you're doing that. And also, as I said at the beginning, this is the best time to look back on years from now. As I've started so many ministries, the most difficult time is that moment right before it starts. So looking forward to just praise reports in years to come. Looking forward to see you grow. We need many strong Christian schools around El Paso, many. So love the investment that the church is making. Also, of course, the school staff and all of that. So, thank you for coming in today. Any last thoughts, Sean, for KELP, El Paso, Las Cruces?
Well, I think when you were sharing yesterday, I thought that really, really struck me. I'd never heard that stat that on a Sunday morning in El Paso, 6% of the population is in church.
Right.
And so just that need for God, and that leads into the need for Christian education.
Right.
I would probably imagine that the stats are pretty similar.
Right.
And so just really getting behind in prayer, not so much financially, all that's great, but getting behind it in prayer is Christian education in El Paso as a whole.
Right. Love it. Sean and Louis, thank you for coming in today. Again, we've been with Pastor Sean Martinez, Louis Martinez, no relation, of Calvary Chapel El Paso. They're over on Zaragoza. Great church. I was able to be with them this last weekend, talking about how they're now investing in Christian education on El Paso's east side. We need many more strong Christian schools in our community, so let's remember them in prayer. CalvaryLionsEP.org. Let's pray for each other. Let's cheer each other on. Just so many people doing so many cool things to invest in our community. Let's cheer each other on and get excited about what's going over on the east side, the west side, the northeast, just all around El Paso. And as we always say at the end of this program, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbor, and give God all the glory. This has been 915 Talk. You have been listening to 915 Talk on KELP Christian Radio. To listen to past recordings of 915 Talk, just visit KELPradio.com and click on the 915 Talk link. Until next time, love your neighbor, love your city, and give God